Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Yu Yu Hakusho Season 2 on Hulu. Now, again, the biggest kind of problem is trying to mark different kind of points to break these up into seasons. This one was a little bit easier, but also sucky in doing it because this one contains the whole Dark Tournament arc, but that means it's 40-some episodes or whatnot. It was a long one. And I'm like, shit. So I'm going through. I'm like, wow, okay. Now, I do understand it's... The main pacing issue I have is one arc ends and then we're immediately thrown into another one that I kind of wish we had a little bit more lag time, even if there wasn't a lot of lag time, mind you. But this does a pretty decent job of tournament arcs, in my opinion, even though it's older and it does have some pacing issues and how it kind of follows the formula of each fight kind of stays to 2 episodes apiece until you get into certain later ones, mainly involving the younger Toguro and Yusuke at the tournament's conclusion. Because we start off at the end, we see, Toguro, of course, has now revealed himself to Yusuke and is like, I want to fight you, bitch. And pretty much goes into his amped up form and takes out pretty much a whole building under construction. Says if Yusuke doesn't fight in this dark tournament, usually filled with demons and apparitions. I still don't know the differentiating point between those, because there's demons and then demons that kind of look like humans, and then demons that really have maybe just humanoid qualities. It's never differentiated at this point that I know of. So it's okay, cool. But he's like, you fight in this tournament, or kill everybody you care about and shit. And Yusuke's like, shit. Kubar's like, shit. Hiei and Kurama's like, the fuck? So they've got about 3 months or so to... Is it 3 months or so? Yeah, they're given a kind of little bit of a time frame where Yusuke decides to go train, everybody trains up and all that. Then they meet to kind of go to Hanging Neck Island where the tournament's going to be. And they have a mysterious 5th fighter who is masked. I'm like, yep. Looks like Genkai. And now granted, I've already seen this point. This is more of a refresher on my part since it's been almost 20 fucking years since I've seen this. Jesus Christ. I am old. But I really did need this kind of refresher, and also it could have some changes a little bit that I didn't notice the first go around because of the censoring issues. And after watching this, I don't know how the fuck they even let this on at a certain time, because this is violent as shit. And I'm not even just talking about blood and guts and gore. When we get into the tournament proper, there are so many people in the audience, just the audience, that fucking died, that it is pure fucking insanity. I'm like, wow, okay, that's fucked up. And then we get even closer to the end, it's like, wow, okay, that's a lot of dead people. Sweet Jesus, how do you sell tickets to this shit? I want to see blood, guts, and gore. Do you want to be part of it? Not particularly, but I'll take that risk. Annihilates almost half of the audience in certain wide-ranging attacks. Sweet good God! But it's just the insanity of it. I'm like, oh God, I completely understand why people are like, I don't know if we can show this, because this gets pretty fucking gnarly. Yeah, it gets pretty fucking gnarly, even for me. So I'm like, alright, I get that. Well, we see that Yusuke at first is sleeping throughout most of the shit on the boat, because it's this is actually the first thing. There's only certain people that can be allowed in the tournament, so Yusuke's team beats the unholy fucking shit out of a boatload of demons, and they get in. And they're evidently the guest team, so they're the only human team there, pretty much even under threat, and everybody's like, fuck you people, and they're like, eat my ass. And Sakio, I did not mean that to come out that way, but it kind of works. Sakio, is pretty much trying to get through all these gambling kind of things to do shit their own way. And of course the Black Cup Club tries to fuck over Yusuke's team continuously, and it's just like, you motherfucker. It runs into the realm of the problem that I still kind of I mentioned in the first season that there's certain issues of how a fight is balanced out, where someone gets their ass kicked, and then they're able to kind of flip it around. It's not as bad here, but it happens a lot, especially with the Black Club pretty much trying to like put Yusuke's team into shitty positions. So we at first kind of see him kind of dealing out and kind of feeling out certain kind of ones. We see the first team that they fight, Kuwabara gets pretty much destroyed by this kid with this yo-yos. It's like, alright, that kind of sucks. Then we see that Yusuke is still asleep. He's not waking up until like a big challenger's up. The Zero dude pops up. He's like, I am like a flaming dude. Hiei then pops up like, hey, well, wait a minute. We have at first this dude with this knife kind of finger that tries to like screw over Kurama, pretty much like, I'm gonna kill your mom. And Kurama's able to pretty much do a thing where he's like, yeah, Death Plant, die, bitch. And it's like, yeah. See, the thing is, it showed why I have certain affinities with certain characters. Like, I don't mind Yusuke and Kuwabara, but they act really dumb on certain kind of issues. Though I kind of more empathize with Kuwabara's kind of stuff. Kurama's I really like because he's a kind of quiet dude who won't fuck off that often, but when you put him into a territory where you are fucking with someone that he cares about, he will go full blast fucking tactically take you out like he did with this dude and the Death Plane. And when we get into other stuff, when he gets his shit worked out, Hiei is just interesting, like, yeah, Black Flame Dragon, holy shit, and it fucks up his arm. Then of course we get one of the big dudes, Chu, popping up as we see Yusuke fighting him. They blast out their energies pretty much, and they do this knife edge death match, which I really kind of liked. My only problem with this part is that we get a lot of people telling us how epic this is, while I'm just like, these dudes have like knives in the ground, they back up their feet, and they wail the shit out of each other. Just show me that. Get me in Yusuke's head. I don't mind getting like some critiques from the other people around him, but it's like going around, it's like, holy shit. But Yusuke is able to headbutt him, and the dude's head so hard that when he falls down, his head cracks the fucking ring. And it's like, Yusuke's head's hard as shit. And of course, Urameshi's team blasts on. It's like, right. So they get a little bit of lag time. Then they go to this like Dr. Ichigachi's team, which he has pretty much tricked these three awesome spirit warrior fighters and pretty much is controlling them. So it presents a conundrum for them as they're trying to figure out how to stop, like, not kill these people. Well, we see that the masked fighter looks young, but is able to use Genkai's spirit wave technique to get them out of the control of the dude, and save their lives at the same time. It's like, yay! But Kuwabara got really fucked up, so it's like, shit. Because that factors into the next fight. Because they're able to kind of like get through the rounds. There's like 16 teams, but they keep like fucking over the Urameshi team. Yusuke then is like, fuck you, Dr. Ichigaki, motherfucker, and just pretty much racks his ass. And we see that Yusuke has also kind of like increased his spiritual awareness with the training by being able to like fire off 4 spirit gun shots in a day. So it's like, yeah, baby, let's get this working. Let's see. So then they are immediately thrown into another match because the tournament committee are a bunch of douche nozzles. Hiei and the masked fighter are pretty much deemed unfit by this like whole Black Club member being a douche, and Togura's like, this is pissing me off, and he fucking flicks the dude with his middle finger and takes his head off. It's like, holy shit. And then they fight a team of ninjas, shinobi, and that was a pretty good one. We see that Kurama pretty much takes down like 2 of them because they needed to, because the only ones that could fight are Kurama, Yusuke, and Kuwabara, even though Kuwabara is pretty much like fucked up completely. But we see that Kurama had to deal with like this dude that uses paints made with his blood, and it's like, shit, that's got, well, paint / makeup kind of thing. Interesting kind of take. I'm just like, alright. But they're able to kind of like get through that. There's this ice kind of dude that he was able to kind of like shellac a little bit. It's like, ram, done. But it of course took Kurama pretty much out of it. And then we get pretty much Yusuke dealing with, let's see, 2. Yusuke dealt with like 2 dudes, I think. Yeah, there's just like one dude. Oh yeah, Stinky. I'm calling him Stinky because his was like sweat powered, and Yusuke just like beat the ass out of him, and then took on the Jin dude, who was a really cool one. He's really a lot like Yusuke, and they had a really good fight. But the tournament committee's like, oh, they were both kind of ringed out, so fuck you, Urameshi. So Kuwabara had to fight the other dude, and he was able to do it because Yukina finally popped up. She's like, I'm looking for my brother. Never really brought up again. It's like, I'm looking for my brother, but yeah, I'm at this demon tournament thing too. And Kuwabara's like, blah, and then is able to beat that dude. It's like, alright. So we then start shifting and getting a little bit more. We learned that Yusuke's spirit egg was not destroyed, but that Koenma was just keeping hold of it, and then it's going to hatch, and then it hatched, and poo popped out. And it's P-U-U, not P-O-O. And it's a cute little kind of penguin-looking dude with like floppy ears and everything, flying around saying poo and all that. And it's a reflection of Yusuke. It's even got a little tuft of his hair, and Yusuke hates the dude at first, like, I ain't into this shit. But since they've gotten through all these kind of fights, and they're getting ready to go into the semifinals, we learned that the masked fighter is Genkai, that she's able to utilize her point when she was most powerful. That's why she was young at certain points. And she's decided to bequeath her spirit orb that she's been making with like her own energy and physical abilities and everything for years, and is going to bequeath it to Yusuke to finally pass on all of her teachings and everything like that, which we learn she had history with Toguro, and that she'd been perfecting the spirit wave technique to kind of like help him, I think. Even though she's saying, I'm not trying to be a hero, I'm not trying to do any of that kind of stuff. So we see that Yusuke kind of like is on his own trying to incorporate it, and that's a crazy ass scene because the power is like making him like bleed everywhere at certain points, and in so much pain that he's like beating through rocks and like smashing his head, and Pooh can feel his distress and everything, and almost like Genkai at first is, at one point is like, I gotta take this out of you, and he's like, no, I'm fucking doing this, and does it, and Genkai's just gonna leave him to it, and then Pooh pops in, and he feels like he needs water, and we see that he gets his drink, and we see that Pooh's been flying out to water, puts it in his little ears, and he's carrying it to Yusuke, and it's like, God Pooh, you're good, man. You're good. He even gets to a certain point where he accidentally drops the water. He's like, shit, man. And then tries to go back. He's like, damn it. And the thing is, this boulder's trying to almost come and kill him. He's like, no! And Yusuke's able to fully incorporate the thing. He's like, we're both getting out of here. Blasts it out, and then carries Pooh with him. He's like, yeah, can you take care of this guy? As he then pretty much goes to sleep again. And that's when we kind of get more into the semifinals. But man, that hit me more than I thought. I'm like, I knew I liked Pooh because, yeah, it was cute, and he doesn't really take much of Yusuke's shit, even though Yusuke's like, I fucking hate this little stuffed animal thing. But seeing him kind of bond with that was really effective and really nice. They executed it very well too, or it didn't feel too melodramatic, but it's like, okay, this is interesting. Now, we had also get to a point where they're fighting this Suzuki dude's team. It's this other kind of like pretty boy dick shit who's trying to do all these things, but we see that a lot of different kind of things are playing out in this one. We see that Hiei is able to utilize the Dragon of the Darkness Flame as a sword to defeat this one kind of dude who can do all these steaming orbs to change his form. We see that Kurama gets transformed into his Yoko Kurama form, his full demon form. And that's not somebody you really want to fuck with because he's got death plans and he's going to fuck with you. And the thing is, this dude was about to reveal all this stuff with this Idon box and everything, and the Banshee Well sword dude pops in like, eat my ass. And he's utilizing this like thousand skull screaming shit. It's like, oh god, it's just eating people. And then we get into a certain point where people's power levels are so high that demons just fucking, like, people without sufficient spirit energy just fucking die. They, like, burst into flames and shit. It's like, god damn. But they're able to kind of get through. We get this dude, this Suzuki dude. There's the old dude He beats the shit. Like, Kuwabara gets his ass beat by the one demon sword dude by being transported out. Then he gets back in and gets transported out again by the fucking old guy before Genkai comes in, beats his unholy ass as he looks like a clown. It's like, alright. Because he's built up as this threat, and then Genkai just fucking knackers his ass. And Togoro's like, yeah, fuck the tournament committee. That's Genkai. That's been the mass fighter. Eat me. And after we pretty much got that upset, we got Togoro's team. We see them acting and pretty much taking out these other people like, holy shit. We get the whole kind of information that Genkai and Toguro were teammates. They had pretty much fought together. Toguro was afraid of aging and dying, and what's the point of being in this physical condition? And he kind of wanted something more with Genkai, but this fear and not being able to face it led to some crazy ass shit, because they fought in the Dark Tournament 50 years previously, and his wish that he wanted granted was to have a demon body and eternal youth, and that's why he's able to like bust out like he does. Now, it's really interesting because on the surface you could really compare his thing to kind of like All Might from My Hero Academia, where it's more of a kind of, well, mix All Might's strength with kind of like Kirishima's hardening, i.e. it's like an augmenting of just like strength and muscles. And at first you would think that that doesn't sound like a very interesting character. It's like, oh yeah, and trust me, they fucking make fun of the shit of making like all these different kind of forms with him, which are just usually bigger muscles. But he's a very effective antagonist. Because of that central plotting, we're able to see Yusuke's team get through all these different kind of challenges to fight this dude. And his goal is to pretty much utilize, he wants to use his absolute strength and either like win through that or be beaten by somebody at the top of that game. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that motivation, but doing all this nasty ass shit you've been doing, like, what the fuck? And we learned that he's got some redeeming qualities. Not many, mind you, but he does have some redeeming shit going on. So, they get through that, they get set up for the end game tournament with the Toguro team. We see everybody kind of like getting themselves together and getting to that kind of end game goal. We see that the Suzuki dude had been pretty much screwed over by Toguro. We see a lot of people wanting a piece of Togoro's ass for what he's done over the years, even his own team. That we've got Karasu, who was beaten and pretty much has an intense hatred. We have Bui, who's got the same thing going on, and Togoro's elder brother is just a dick. And Sakio's whole thing that we get info dumped at the end is that he's just a sadistic little fuck, and he wants to make a giant demon tunnel so demons come in and just fuck shit up. He could have been interesting in that antagonistic goal, and by the way, it has a nice plot point there, even though for some reason there's a thing going on with him and Kuwabara's sister, as he's protected her from demons for some reason, even though he's a sadistic fuck. So that thing doesn't really jive together, and I'm just like, alright, that's fine, but you're info dumping this shit pretty much towards the end of the season, an arc, which doesn't give it room to breathe. We've seen him pretty much fucking over and even killing the tournament committee, and that their goals are aligned with him and the younger Toguro for what's going on, but he doesn't really give a shit. Toguro, for some reason, ordered orange juice over ice. But it's like, alright, what's your objective there? Do you just not like peace? Do you want demons to be over here? Do you just want to see death, destruction, and mayhem? I just needed a little bit more rather than, I'm a sadistic fuck and I want to make a demon portal. Now, I think that pops up later on, like in the next season for certain things, but we'll see that as we get to it. I've gotten a little bit into that, but I want to avoid as much bleed over as possible. Except for this. We get into the final match, and we do see like the Elder Toguro beaten, but he still pops back up. This one falls into a realm of death and consequences having some weird kind of things. I don't mind certain characters coming back, but since there's not a lot of time between the like death and resurrections, it gets kind of weird. So death usually should have more consequences, except for how this was set up to pretty much put Yusuke on the path to being the spirit detective. So, we start off with our big kind of matchups. We see that Suzuki has given this fruit of the past life kind of thing to Kurama, so that way he can pretty much shift into his Yoko form. And the trial sword, which did the Banshee wheel thing, to Kuwabara to like amp up his spirit sword. We've seen that Hiei has been training and doing his stuff. Of course, Yusuke is slammed up with his spirit orb, but he hasn't had a chance to like really utilize it effectively. Before this, Genkai is killed by Toguro, so I'm like, yeah, we're gonna finally finish this. Yusuke gets there and she dies in his arms, and to have him to keep perspective and not lose himself like Toguro did. And that's a big thing. It's like, god damn. It's crazy, man. So that's what we're going in. Each side has 4 members, and the tournament committee's like, oh, you're gonna have 5 members. So Koenma gets on Yusuke's team, and Sakio gets onto Toguro's team, and they also get to a point where it's like, yeah, if most of them get like knocked out, whoever loses, that other person dies. It's like, alright, fine, cool, whatever. So the first matchup is Karasu versus Kurama, and Karasu had pretty much been doing his own kind of thing to like get in the head game with Kurama and can make bombs and shit with his spirit energy. That's why he looked like he could touch and do all this kind of stuff. Kurama is able to get into his Yoko form and almost is able to take him out, but it lasts less time than he thought it would, kind of fusion technique style, and he tries to do what he can, but the weird thing that pops up is that Kurama is down on the ground too long on the count, but he is able to utilize a plant that kills Karasu, and even though Karasu technically is the winner, he is dead, and that is that. So, right? Then we see that Bui and Hiei fight, and this was an interesting fight because they shifted animation for some reason, and it wasn't all bad, but it was like, why are we doing this? It was an interesting stylistic choice, but it's like, all right, because we would not complete shifting of a complete thing, like from here to like fucking some other kind of like animation style, not as strange as like the ending of Neon Genesis Evangelion, where it would shift between certain kind of things. That at least kind of worked with on that kind of thing. It wasn't that radical of a shift, but it was like, alright. Well, we see that Bui has this like battle R and shit, and of course we get kind of a Goku moment where all that armor is to protect everybody else from his shit, and we see that Hiei's gotten greater control over the Dragon of the Black Flame, tries to utilize it on Bui, but he's able to kind of knock it back, and it kind of tries to eat Hiei, but Hiei eats it, and is able to unleash it at any time, pretty much, and like knocks Bui out, but doesn't kill him, and then he's expended so much energy, he hibernates. Then we get the shittiest kind of matchup of Kuwabara versus the Elder Toguro, and he just pretty much like fucks with him, stabs him with like his pointy, pokey arms, and he's like, yeah, you gotta pretty much take me all out at once because I can hide my vitals anywhere. Oh yeah, Genkai's also dead. And then Kuwabara's kind of pissed off at them, but Yusuke's like, if I said it, it'd be real. And Kuwabara's still kind of pissed, but he still kind of understands. And the thing is, we see that like Toguro is kind of killed by a giant fucking fly swatter that Kuwabara is able to do, and it just like was really anticlimactic. And then we get ready that Toguro and Yusuke are gonna fight, and then he pops back. I'm gonna like, eh! And then Togoro's like, eat my ass, bitch! And then fucking Thunder punches him out. But that is still not the end of him, because we see him in the next season in the beginning. Annoying. But then we get the really good fight of Toguro versus Yusuke, as Toguro keeps trying to push Yusuke to fully realize his power. And this will be interesting because even in the beginning of the next one, we see that, like, okay, Yusuke's fought this big enemy. What's that next kind of challenge? How do you go back to school having fought through a tournament of demons for your life? It does make sense because Yusuke is a fighter. That is his element. Training, honing himself, battling those kinds of threats. He is a warrior on that front. His kind of definition of peace is a different kind of definition of peace than most of us would have. But that's for another time. This time, this is where he's in his element, as we see them kind of testing each other. Toguro going at 80% first, being very disappointed in Yusuke before Yusuke's able to unleash like his biggest kind of like spirit gun blast that we've seen so far. It takes Toguro out of the stadium, but then he comes back in like, yeah, what up? I'm still disappointed. And trying to kind of push Yusuke to go even further. And he does get to that point where Toguro is able to kind of bump up to what he calls his 100%, but more is like an 85%. But he's like able to like flick these things that like are able to take him out. He's like, you really need to do better, Urameshi. And he gets in this form, he just is randomly eating souls because his body needs it. And he's like, I usually stop it, but I'll this. And we see everybody more dying, and he starts threatening his friends, and Genkai gets brought back and possesses Pooh, which is kind of crazy because you see Pooh, and then it's got kind of like Genkai's face on it, and it's like, you stupid idiot. And he's like, yeah, maybe if you kill one of his friends, it'll kind of work. And then we see Toguro do what we seemingly think is kill Kuwabara. This, of course, sets Yusuke off, and he starts bashing in Toguro badly, and it's like he's finally kind of got it, and he hates himself that he has such a shitty kind of wall between his emotions that he couldn't realize his power before that kind of sacrifice needed to be made. But he's able to prevail a little bit more. We see Keiko pretty much have a fucking nervous breakdown, being like, this is insane. This can't be real. We're back in our world of just doing the kind of crazy stuff in the beginning of just living normal lives. And Pooh, of course, is protecting him with an energy shield and all that. It's like, well, was. When Pooh was possessed, like Botan and Yukina had to kind of take over that shit. But we see that Yusuke is like, alright, fine, I'm going to put everything I got into this spirit gun blast. He goes into like his 120% mode. It's like this big kind of beefy thing. Yusuke fires it off, and it kind of breaks Toguro. He's able to kind of like smoosh it, and Yusuke kind of falls down, but he falls down and dies. And Yusuke's able to get back up, and they're presented with their win for the tournament. Sakyo's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody, and sets off this pretty much thing to pretty much blow up the stadium. And Ren was like, yeah, this is done, right? It's like, yeah, this will be done. I'll blow up all this shit. Fuck it. Shizuru's like, what are you doing? He tosses his lighter to her. They are able to escape. Cool guy action explosion out. And they're like, yeah, we did it for you, Grandma. We did it. And, of course, the tournament committee's dead. So doing what their wish would be, which would be to bring back Genkai, really wouldn't seem that possible. But then the kind of last episode, we see that Genkai and Toguro pretty much have their own kind of tete-a-tete at the spirit world. And see, Toguro went to Koenma first, and Koenma's like, are you sure you want to do this? And that he wanted to be in Oblivion for pretty much, not Oblivion, Limbo for 10,000 years to just have excruciating pain. And it's like, damn. And Koenma was even like, due to your contributions and how you handled the Dark Tournament, you will be punished, but it does not need to be this severe. And that was an interesting kind of character moment of Toguro wanting that worse off punishment, and Koenma trying to argue him out of that. That's a really kind of interesting kind of thing. And then we get more backstory that about 50 years ago, to get them into the Dark Tournament kind of thing, the reigning demon champion pretty much killed everybody at Toguro's dojo, and he wanted vengeance, and he does kill the demon in that Dark Tournament, but like feeling that guilt and everything like that, and Genkai pretty much calls him out on it, even though he tries to kind of like hide that kind of thing. Even though he has done horrible things and killed and tortured and done horrible things to people, there is a punishment meant for that. But him going like this is like, wow. And they kind of just walk off with each other. And it was, of course, Genkai in her younger form. She comes back out. We see that Toguro told Koenma to keep Genkai's body in a good kind of place because the tournament committee is pretty much dead and won't be able to like grant whatever their wish is. And we see that Team Urameshi is kind of dealing with the fallout. Yusuke's still not handling Genkai's death very well, and still acting like an asshole towards Pooh, even though Pooh was pretty much like, hey, you're pretty much like dying over here. Let me get you some water. Meshi. But they're pretty much getting ready to go, and we see that Genkai is brought back to life because that is what their wish was, and Koenma was able to kind of grant that for him. Like, you're gonna leave me back here, and everybody's all happy and everything like that as they then go back to their living lives in the living world, and it's like, yay, Genkai's back. And I kind of like that because she probably still has stuff to teach Yusuke and can still do some kind of stuff, and this was just a shitty kind of chapter that needed to be closed. She, even though it could be presented as a non-consequence that she died, I don't believe that's the case here. Now, that's not to say that this death probably didn't have consequences. I mean, there could be, or she could just be back and there's no repercussions. But she did not shirk from this death. She knew that Toguro was going to kill her and that she had to face him to finish off what their whole deal was. And even to go further on and actually have them talk in the spirit world to kind of like hash that shit out. So it does have consequences, and it's not like a complete clean slate wipe kind of thing. She still physically went through dying and then coming back. So, it's really weird how I feel about it. Do I think that there needed to be a little bit more time? Yes. Do I hate that she was brought back? No. I do not mind deaths and resurrections as long as there are meaningful things on the journey for them. I do see that like Buddhism and the Buddhism kind of traditions of like reincarnation and everything are kind of like a big thing here, and I get that because Yusuke's thing is a big thing with that as well because of his death that he did with the kid and then brought back, and Genkai here kind of does that as well. She did her thing. She passed on her powers to her apprentice to make sure that he would be able to fight off and even finish the battle that she would probably not be able to. And then she came back for doing all the kind of things she did, taking on demons, doing everything that she's done within her life. And it's like, yeah, that's a granted piece in the next stage of life after death would be one reward that she will get someday, but also the reward of coming back because her team would have probably wanted that because of what was going on and what was occurring. It's like, yeah, okay, I get that. Sorry, it's a big kind of thing of that coming in, at least on the conclusion. So we see that Yusuke has like gotten really big and powerful. Now, I do think that we needed at least a little bit more time for Yusuke to get acclimated to a certain kind of power set. Not meaning that I needed like a fuck ton of more episodes on that, but it kind of is like boom, 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 because we shifted full-on battle mode for this, and it'll be interesting to see how the next kind of seasons kind of work that out. So, I did enjoy this one. It's definitely not for kids. Like, granted, I could see how the first season kids could be alright with it, though there's some kind of sketchy stuff here, stuff there. Here, it's just like, oh shit, you gotta watch out. Oh, one kind of cool thing that I liked during the tournament thing was Yusuke's uniform. Usually you see him and he's got like that green uniform, but he's, of course, in a fighting tournament, and that really wouldn't be conducive, even though that Kuwabara did a lot of fighting in his own uniform. Yusuke had the green wristbands that I really liked. That was another thing. Genkai put the spirit cuffs on him during the battle, he was able to take those off to like get himself back up and powered and everything. It's mainly the pacing out and the execution of how those power kind of spikes come off. Not that I need more episodes, because there was a lot of fucking episodes in here, and even though in today's kind of thing that we're going on with seasons, they've usually went for shorter ones, I did not need this like expanded. I just thought we needed a little bit more time to like acclimate to Yusuke's certain power things before he would get to his kind of next power spike, before we potentially get to some kind of plateau or whatnot that he needs to get to a new kind of challenge to overcome. So, overall, I enjoyed this. I really liked the kind of character development of Yusuke coming to terms with his powers, gaining the powers from Genkai, being able to utilize those powers effectively in fighting and ending Toguro, and actually them both coming out, and Toguro actually teaching Yusuke, and Yusuke teaching Toguro as well, about the nature of power and what's best. Toguro doing it for himself and being selfish, where Yusuke was doing it more selflessly to protect his friends and to grow old and accept those consequences of his actions without running away. Kurama kind of going through and seeing how his tactical mind worked and getting more in touch with his Yoko Kurama demon side and actually growing from that because he absorbs more of Yoko Kurama's energy. That's why he didn't die to Karasu. Hiei getting more in tune with the team and learning to control the Dragon of the Darkness flame. And Kuwabara, he does learn some stuff, but he has definitely dealt more on the comedic relief. But he does kind of grow in his own powers, even though if you see this, you're like, I don't really see that. I don't blame you, because it's not executed as well as it should have been. He was more on the comedic relief front, and I would say we're barely given wins. Granted, Hiei is more Vegeta-like in attitude. Kuwabara is more Vegeta-like in actuality of the kind of like rivalry between Yusuke, so Kuwabara has to mainly get fucked over more so that way Yusuke gets more of the shining kind of stuff. Even though somehow Hiei and Kurama are able to get their own kind of spotlights without taking that away from Yusuke. So, I overall enjoyed this season. I just wish that it was in kind of better chunks to kind of talk about. But, I can understand why I like this season. And why I was kind of like, okay, why is this going off now? Oh, looking back now, I'm like, sweet Jesus, I fucking watched this? Ugh! But the thing is, it's gory, but not overly gory. It's like, these people are dying, but I, like, understood that. I'm like, this is wrong. This is a demon tournament, sure, but, like, good lord. I just like the overall kind of characters and themes, I guess, that kept me from being like, oh, these people are murdering people in the audience, fuck ton. This is getting kind of crazy. They're kind of killing and maiming and destroying each other. Oh, wow, this is kind of fucked up. It's more like I saw that and was like, that's not right. And then seeing Yusuke's team of trying to fight against that, even while operating under their own systems and rules of that would perpetuate that, and yet in the end they still won. And I think that's a good kind of lesson to kind of show out. Even though there's a lot of insane shit going on. Like, I'm going to make a portal to the demon realm. I lost? I'm going to kill myself now. And all these people in the stadium, if you don't leave. You put up barriers to make sure we didn't leave so that way Toguro could eat our fucking souls. A dickhole. A dickhole. A dickhole. Suck you. You suck, man. So, it did teach me that you better look at the fine print if it says you might die in the fucking audience if you buy your ticket to something like this. Ugh. Dude. Shit. Now I fucking went nuts and be like, okay, if they did that tournament nowadays, live streaming that shit, how that would work out. That's funny. I was thinking, this might need an update to see how this would work. Now, granted, it doesn't need to be like a complete... I'm not thinking of freaking sequel shit to Yu Yu Hakusho. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be, you could almost, I would almost also want to see a prequel of Genkai's team fucking fighting through the Dark Tournament. That'd be actually pretty cool. I know I've gotten a little bit off track, but it's interesting that I watched this when I was vastly younger, and watching it vastly older than that person, and the differences that I'm kind of seeing, and why I like it, why I've got some issues, and why those issues don't impact my enjoyment of it, or how I would say it was still a good season to kind of like go through. So I would definitely recommend this if you're into shonen fighting and all that kind of stuff. If you're a kid or in your teens and you're not into like, oh my god, that's a lot of death, I would be wary on this. Though I don't think you'd be completely screwed up. It definitely would have some weird shit that you'd be like, I'm uncomfortable with this. So take with that as you will. So those are my opinions on this season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.